Is it wrong to say that the last few months have been glorious? I don't want to come across as callous or uncaring. I recognise the difficulty that this virus has caused for people the world over, and I offer my deepest sympathies to anyone who's lost somebody close to them and isn't able to properly mourn due to the isolation. I wish that nobody had to suffer in such a way. But for me personally, as an adult in my 30s who was diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum just a few years ago, the lockdown was actually a wonderful relief. I've always been a loner, even from a young age, and in a perfect world I would love to follow in the footsteps of Chris McCaldis or some other famous hermit, wandering out into the wilderness to live miles away from any human contact. Even though that isn't currently possible for me, I still spend countless hours locked away in my room at our family home, lost in virtual wildernesses in computer games where real life can't intrude. So you might imagine, being forced to stay at home and not see anyone was largely a dream come true for me. With appointments cancelled and social occasions off the table, I actually felt more free, more in control and relaxed than I ever really had in the bustling, overwhelming world before the pandemic. The peace and quiet of the normally busy road outside was a breath of fresh air, and I revelled in it. Ironically enough, I think I actually saw more people during the lockdown than I did before. Thanks, Zoom, I say with a heavy helping of sarcasm. With the boom in that and other video call apps which proliferated as the world stayed at home, my parents would frequently contact friends and family members to see how they were doing. And to some degree I felt obligated to show my face. But even though this was hard, it was still somewhat more manageable than having to speak to them in the flesh, as the screen and camera created a sort of barrier between us in my mind, an invisible force field which retained a certain degree of separateness and distance. Also, I could leave the call anytime it got too much for me, escaping back into the sanctuary in my room and leaving my parents to confabulate ad nauseum. As I write this, the lockdown is beginning to lift, and life is starting to resume its breakneck dash of normality. Already I've got a doctor's appointment to attend in just a few days, and a weekly autism discussion group's being arranged for me and a number of others on another of those darn conference programs. The road outside is once again roaring to the sound of traffic, and again my anxiety begins to rise with it. Once more, I'll be expected to take part in this burly controlled chaos which we call society, conforming to all the social norms of interaction and socialization, all the while suppressing panic attacks, sensory overload and mental emotional breakdown. The quiet calm and reassuring control tasted so briefly during the isolation will again slip away into the realm of nothing more than fantasy on a computer screen. Life will intrude anew. I recognise that not everyone is like me. While I don't understand their viewpoints, I respect that some really need social interaction in order to be happy. And I do deeply feel for anyone who has lost someone in the pandemic and may be grieving without being able to get full closure on their pain. It's a terrible situation and I would not wish it on anyone. But for all the darkness, as we begin to pick up our lives once more and the world again begins to turn, and we remember that once, just for a short time, we had a little peace and quiet. And that, specifically, was wonderful.